the officer was justified in what they did, then they will be exonerated. And that's my word.
Nope, not taking it. We want that officer's head on a stick.
I got a question from Getbox D3.
What is that? Did you just curse on here?
No.
I hear you had a huge endorsement.
That relationship led me to sit down with President Trump for 20 minutes. And at the end of that conversation, he turned to me. He was like, I'm going to endorse you.
But under House Bill 621, a property owner can request law enforcement to immediately remove a squatter from their property if the following conditions are met.
Through loopholes, they were becoming like, oh, you have to evict them to get them out. There was this national push to inform illegal immigrants that they could do this. Well, oh, he's in. Sorry. I know that they're an illegal immigrant, but you left your house vacant. Crazy.
Yeah. We also have sound effects.
Oh.
Yeah. And we're back!
Okay.
Do you have the clapping one?
Yes, right here.
Okay.
There we go.
It's going to be good.
All right. And we were just talking off the camera on the position that you hold, which is what? Because technically we're not really sponsored by Celsius.
Okay.
They haven't
I just
sponsored.
want to be part of the team here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're making it nice and neat, I guess, as neat as it could be.
Understood.
Yes. So
We were talking.
Yes, we were talking about the position that you hold, right, before I introduce you. And, I kind of got schooled on what it was. So we're just going to get right into it.
Okay.
I want to tell you something. I like the way that you were just like, just call me Rosie, right? We just had an aunt just recently passed. Her name was Rosie. And, man, what a beautiful soul. Beautiful soul. And may she rest in peace. And we miss her. So saying Rosie, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's already a connection.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's already a connection.
I'm sorry for your loss, first and foremost.
Yes, it was rough, but not to open up on.
No, I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share too. I just flew back in this morning.
Yeah.
Because my uncle passed.
Oh, okay.
And so I can honestly tell you, like, I get it. Like sometimes you gotta slow down and appreciate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What we have.
Life moves so fast, and then things happen, and then it really puts everything into perspective of saying, man, what's really important?
Yes,
because
100%.
As you're concentrating on this stuff that may not be so important, things are happening, and you're going, wow, man, I missed that. Yep. That's why I give my daughter, try to give her as many hugs as I can, because she's already starting to sprout up.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, can we bring the mood back up? Hey! Okay, so it's Assistant Director Rosie Cordero-Stutz.
That's it. You nailed it.
I said, I don't speak Spanish.
No, I'm so sorry, and I do the Spanglish all the
So
time.
is it be Cordero?
Well, that's pretty good.
Is there too many R's?
No,
it's Cordero or
Cordero.
Cordero.
Which
I was trying not to
literally stands for lamb.
Lamb.
Oh.
Yeah, como Cordero de Dios.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, all right. So, and again, we were talking off camera about assistant director and what that is, and I was trying to, the way that I learn, I do the visual stuff. So I'm like, so there's a director, because I was like, is it assistant chief? You're like, no. I have chiefs that are underneath me. I was like, oh, okay. So for the Miami-Dade Police Department, it's director, assistant director, and then chiefs.
Correct.
And then under those chiefs, there's a whole bunch of majors.
Yep.
And then so on and so forth, captain, lieutenant, so on and so forth. But they all report to you.
Right. So, there's actually 3 assistant directors.
Okay,
I want to be clear, because we are the 7th largest police department in the United States. 3,200 sworn officers.
All right.
Yeah, so that's why we have such a larger pyramid, right? But underneath my command, I have investigative services.
Oh, okay.
So I've got every homicide, robbery, special victims, homeland, warrants, and a bunch more that we can talk about.
Okay, I like it. As we're going to get into it. Throughout the episode, we've been running. This is very historic election going on. There's the first time in 67 years, I want to say, that there hasn't been an elected sheriff, and the people voted to have an elected sheriff this year. So on the ballot this year, there's going to be a position for the Miami-Dade County Sheriff.
Yes.
And since that's been happening, I've been having candidates on.
Yes.
this show right now. So I'm going to bring you on, talk about some things, do some tabletop exercises. I have questions from the audience. The lights are going to get red, as though it's not hot enough already in here. We're going to get lights red, and we're going to ask some questions from the audience. We're going to put you in that hot seat, and then we're going to have a good time. We're going to learn a little bit about you and what the campaign is about, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get started. Enough of the jibber jabber. So you want to tell me, where'd you grow up? What high school did you go to? Like, lead me into becoming a law enforcement officer.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm Dominican.
Okay.
In the Dominican Republic,
All right.
my family. I actually was born in the Dominican Republic. I came to this country when I was 2 months old.
Oh, okay.
My parents were already living in New York.
Okay.
But my mom, when she got pregnant with me, got told she had to be in bed rest.
Okay.
Which happens to many moms, right, during
Yes.
the pregnancy. So she went back to Dominican to be with her mom during that time, and hence I was born there and traveled back to New York. So I grew up my early formidable years there in New York City.
Okay. What part?
Washington Heights.
Washington Heights. All right.
Before the musical.
Okay.
But, pretty
All right.
much it was,
All
that,
right.
that part of town. And then for high school years, I moved to Queens.
Okay.
And then I went to college in upstate New York, Poughkeepsie, which is Marist College. That's
Okay.
where I have my bachelor's degree in criminal justice.
Beautiful up there.
It is outstandingly beautiful. The
Yes.
Hudson River, Hudson Valley, it's fantastic. So I always knew, honestly, that law enforcement kind of picked me. I always knew I wanted to be a cop. Like I ran around to the SWAT theme.
Oh. We don't have
Thank
that sound
you.
effect, man.
Like I remember being about 5 years old, like telling my mom that's what I wanted to do. And I say that because a lot of people think like, oh, that's just like a gimmick. It's a true story. I've told it time and time again. I love helping people. I genuinely I'm that person. Like if I'm in line at the grocery store and like there's a abuelita that can't find something,
Yeah.
like I have to stop what I'm doing and go help. That's just who I am. So it kind of just continued my evolution as I went up, and I knew my mom was just like, she was a single mom. She raised me, my sister in New York City. We were latchkey kids, and my mom, God rest her soul, she passed away in 2019. So she's not here for this, but I know she'd be super proud, And she did get to see me get to the rank of, I believe, police chief was where I was at but she also got Alzheimer's. So those last few years were tough,
Yeah.
But she was, she fought, and she was such a hard worker, and all she said was, your education is everything, because no matter what in life, you have your education and no one can take it from you.
Yep.
That's it.
That's true.
And that's all she said. She goes, I can't give you much, we don't
Yeah.
have a lot. We were poor, but you work hard in your education, and that you will always have with you. And that's what we did. And she put me and my sister, both of us, through college. I still to this day don't know how she did it. There were days she worked 3 jobs
Yeah.
to make that happen. So she's my rock star. We were blessed. Even though my parents were divorced, our dad was a part of our lives, and I always said we ended up with 2 good homes. Like we would spend summers with my dad. So my dad, when he retired he was a mechanic, and he retired from a bus company up in New York, and he ended up moving with he remarried. I have a brother and a sister, but they're my brother and my sister
Yeah.
from his second family, and they moved to South Florida. So I spent summers in South Florida.
Oh.
That's why Miami was my second home.
Hey.
And so I learned to drive on Ocean Drive, when you could throw a bowling ball from one to the other and nothing hit,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. And so when I graduated college, 1991, okay, so one more thing, because we started talking about this.
Yes.
I turned 55 this year. I have very good genes, and people think I look younger, and then
Yeah.
they go, well, you're too young to have done that. I'm like, I look young, and I'm grateful for those genes, but I have the experience, and everything I've done in my life, it's been through experience and time. It wasn't because I jumped anything or didn't do anything. It really has been an experience for me. So I going back to I graduated high school in 87, 91 is college.
Yes.
There's a freeze in NYPD, because I'm going to go NYPD.
Oh, okay.
I was in New
All
York.
right.
That's what I thought.
All right.
That's what I thought.
Forget about it.
I know. So I know. I just came back from New York. I could go full New York if you want, but no. I can tuck it away. I can tuck it away. So,
As we get on, we'll get a
It'll
little
happen.
more New York. Forget about it. We'll do it. Don't worry about it.
There was a freeze.
Yeah.
So I there's no application process. So, okay. it just made logical sense.
Yeah.
I'm moving to South Florida, and the only place I applied for was Miami-Dade Police Department, because back then it was Metro.
Metro.
Right?
Yeah.
Metro.
Metro
1996, I
Oh.
started on the job.
Okay.
And so I came up through the ranks, patrol. I was an officer in Northside District, and I was a blue shirt gopher, ran around headquarters for a couple months before the academy started.
Yeah.
And then I got in the academy. It was a 9-month academy back then.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty long. I
Well,
think we're back to that
Yeah,
about now.
because-
We kind of got short again, and then we got long
Yeah.
again.
Well, you guys are a little bit different because you're doing the sheriff stuff. So
Yeah.
it's the whatever we learn plus the other responsibilities that you guys have.
Yes. So, and back then,
Yeah.
I went through Miami-Dade College, right? School,
Yeah.
public safety, I believe. And
BLE?
then BLE 176,
Oh,
a tougher class, does
fellow
not
BLE.
exist. Yeah, that was our little motto. I still remember
What
that.
is it? What is it?
BLE 176, a tougher class, does not exist.
Okay.
It's just one of those things that will stay with you for your entire career.
I don't remember mine. That's
No?
funny. No,
Oh, boy.
BLE
Okay,
253.
to my fellow BLE 176ers, I apologize for giving up that motto. All right.
Well,
So-
what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it. We
They're
had
retiring now, most of them, because now,
Yeah.
25 years for us is, and a lot of them are
Yeah.
starting to, now I'm starting to see them retired, which is kind of crazy.
It is. It is.
Crazy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then all the new officers coming on and just feel a little old
Yeah.
that you're walking around because you used to look at the older officers and say, "Look at these old dinosaurs," and now we're walking around like. Thank you, babe. She's on fire with her. Hey,
you
she's
go.
back. All right, so
All right,
not too good.
so,
We went off on the Jurassic Park stuff.
Gotcha.
So a lot of your classmates are retiring. You
Yeah.
would say.
So I graduate college. I relocate down to South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm living here. Start my career with Miami-Dade Police Department. I'm on the road. I always knew I wanted to be a police officer, and then I became a police officer, and it was like,
What kind of a police officer were you, Rosie? There's a lot of different. Let me just put that because people are like, well, I don't know. So there's people that like investigative. There's people that like the foot pursuits. There's people that like to solve the problems. And yes, it's good to do all of that stuff. But generally, you get in, you do patrol, and then you're like, I want to do that canine, or I'd like to go on Marine patrol or ride a motorcycle. What were you?
So
Yeah.
when I got on,
Mhm.
I thought, I'm going to be a detective.
Ooh.
That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to be. And
Sorry,
homicide.
sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Homicide.
Okay.
I want to do homicide.
Everybody,
That's it.
homicide. That's
Yeah,
what they say.
that's
I'm
what I
going to
want.
homicide or
Go to
SWAT.
home. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then I got on patrol,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my, this is awesome.
It is, right?
I mean, really, I had so much fun. I couldn't even believe like this was my job.
Yeah.
Every day I got to like, it just fills a part of your soul, I think, when you love your job so much that, when you help people.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you come across these people later on and you just have these conversations and sometimes people you just don't even know you impacted, you
Yeah.
know. So I was on the road in Northside and then eventually I went to RID as a detective.
Ooh.
In fact, I was in RID when we were still wearing black polos and blue jeans. So I was like the right in the beginning.
Robbery intervention detail.
Correct. So yeah, that's the kind of cop I was.
All right. That's what I'm talking about, Panther, right there, Rosie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
And then people may be listening like, I don't really understand what RID is. Basically, you go out in unmarked vehicles. There is an element that has a marked vehicle, but mainly unmarked vehicles, and you go after these robbery subjects, proactively patrolling, working up on robbery subjects, taking them down, armed robbers, the guys with the AK-47s that put it in your face and say, give me your money, give me your chain, even shooting murderers.
Yep, absolutely. Carjackers, home invasion robbers.
Yeah.
The worst of the worst. And very proactively.
Yeah.
And so I did
awesome.
RID. I loved, that was probably, one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah.
Especially because was not only a detective in RID, I eventually came back as a sergeant in RID as well and did a
Nice.
tour as a sergeant later on when I got promoted, when I started to get promoted. So after, I'm trying to put things in.
Okay, so you did a tour in RID, you got promoted, you came back eventually.
Okay, so yeah, so I don't get promoted out of RID, do I?
No, I don't know.
Trying to think. No, oh no, I went to homicide.
So you did it.
I did
That's
it.
good. All right. So you had that vision of going to homicide.
I did. And so I ended up in homicide as a detective, and I did homicide for 5 years. And I worked actually very closely with City of Miami, because obviously City of Miami and our homicide, we worked hand in hand.
Yeah.
A lot of our cases tend to overlap. Unfortunately, it's just part of the investigative process.
Yeah.
So I did that for 5 years. I have to say I was very blessed, because I did it at a time in my life where I wasn't married and I didn't have a child. Because I worked 24/7, 365. I gave up vacations, got flown back from vacations, got vacations canceled. I remember being on call, going on a call to a case, handling it, getting home 2 or 3 in the morning, taking a shower, hitting the bed, and getting a call within an hour that I was up again. I don't, because you're up for the next case. Somehow it gone full rotation, and you're back on another case. So those were really fast 5 years of my life.
Yeah.
And that's where I got promoted out of homicide. So at some point I decided that I wanted to start getting promoted. I get promoted to the rank of sergeant, and I go back to RID. And during that time, I spent another couple of years as a sergeant in RID, and I decided that I wanted to continue further my education, and I went back part-time to FIU, and I got my master's degree in public administration. I have a certification as well in human resources. And part of that thought process is that I knew that eventually in my career, I wanted to be able to help my officers. Like, I realized that I could do I'd done the tough work.
Yeah.
And I also knew that for someone to be able to protect the officers and what they were doing, they needed to be able to understand the tough work.
Yeah.
And so, but then you had to have the skill set to become a boss. And I had the knowledge being, that kind of police work, but how could I get promoted? How could I do that and put myself in the best place? And so I decided to go ahead and get my master's degree and start kind of my education. I've always kind of been a student my whole life. I've always tried to make myself better and grow, challenge myself.
Yeah.
And so I did that.
Can I ask you 2 questions? One, when you were in the academy sitting there, did you ever think one day you'd be in the position that you are right now?
Never.
Never, right?
Never.
Is it, and then the second part of that, when you're an officer, right, and I'm an officer, right, and in my career I moved lateral. I didn't move up, but I don't take anything away. I love my career, but I haven't taken that. What you said, I want to take care of my officers, and I think that's when you get to that sergeant level, and you become that supervisor. And once you hit that sergeant, where you're like, oh no, I'm not stopping here. I'm getting to the next one, and then to the next one, and then to the next one. Is that where that ambition came in once you started, became that supervisor?
So the sergeant, I wanted the rank of sergeant.
Right.
Right. And then I'm like, okay, I was a sergeant, I was doing well. I went to internal affairs. I was a sergeant in internal affairs for a while. And that was important to me too, because I do believe in, like, you honor that badge.
Yeah.
So people who tarnish that badge don't need to be wearing that badge. Like, that's important as well. And also equally, if you're not guilty of something you're accused, you should be found, just like of any other citizens, you deserve the right to be found innocent as well.
Correct.
I will tell you this, honestly, when I hit the rank of lieutenant,
Yeah.
I really asked myself, what the heck have I done?
Yeah.
That's when I hit a wall.
Yeah.
Lieutenant, I will tell you that for the first year of being a lieutenant, I thought I made a really big mistake and I should have just stayed a sergeant. And it was because that, I think, is for our department, at least because of the size, it was a full transition. I was the afternoon platoon commander in Intercoastal District, which is super busy, right?
Right.
Huge. And it was me. I was the highest ranking official on afternoons, right? Every robbery, every murder, every major scene, I'm the highest rank. And I'm not doing police work anymore.
Yeah.
I'm doing more administrative work.
Yeah.
And so it was when I had to come to the realization that my task had shifted, that I was more an administrator than I was a cop. And so it was a fight for me internally, because I still loved, and I'm not going to lie, there were times that I still took down bad guys as a lieutenant.
I was going to ask you that too, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I did it.
Yeah.
I did it.
If it's in you, it's in you. You got that dog in you.
Yeah. And I'll tell a story here because my son is 15 now.
Okay, so he can hear it.
Yeah, he can hear it. So can my husband. So my husband and I had gotten pregnant, and I had a tough time getting pregnant. So it was like, thank you. But I didn't want to get, I know you're going to find this shocking, but I didn't really want to get out of uniform. I was like, I'm good, I'm fine. So, we didn't really say anything. And so I'm on the road, I'm lieutenant, and City of Miami rose up. He gets, subject is clearly under the influence. He is sweating, he has stripped himself naked, and but it's only the one officer in the city, and I'm watching it, and I'm calling for backup. I'm trying not to get out of the car because I know I am pregnant. However, he puts hands on and the fight's on, and next thing I know, I'm in the fight with him. We're in the fight, and we got him, and it was all good, But I went home that day and I said, I think I'm gonna pull myself out of uniform.
Yeah.
He goes, really? I said, yeah, I think it's time.
So they don't know about that story.
He's gonna know about it now.
He's gonna know about it now.
I think I'm safe. 15, I think
I'm gonna clip just that part to make sure we put that part out.
I remember I talked to other female moms and officers, and they were like, because it is instinct, it is training, and you respond. That is how you respond. There was no part of me in my brain that was thinking at that moment other than that officer needs me to assist in this moment. It's one-on-one, and I'm here to help him. So I
like it. Yeah. So at one point you switch gears, and then you hit the rocket boosters and start moving up the ranks. So at one point you're like, I guess that lieutenant, because sergeant, you're out there with the team, and lieutenant, you're kind of, but not really, but you're looking back like, I miss you. And then at one point you got to pack it up and start.
He puts it because he's right.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
I miss you. And then hey, what do you guys get into today? And I'll be jumping off the reports. All right, see you guys later. And then, but at one point you hit the rocket boosters and you're out, and you're assistant director now.
I am.
So how?
Okay.
What was that turning point like?
So I'll give you the speed version. Up there?
Speed version, because we're gonna take a short break. Not taking commercials by Celsius. We're actually gonna play one of your videos. You don't even know this yet. We're gonna put one of your videos on so they can get an idea. So go ahead.
Perfect. So so I'm a lieutenant. I end up as a PIO.
Oh.
Right. End up over as a PIO for some time. I had the Economic Crimes Mortgage Fraud Task Force for some time. I'm tasked with that. And at some point then, after that, I interview and I get promoted to the rank of major. Mm-hmm. And that's when, after that, I go to Personnel Management Bureau, start cranking up hiring, the hiring process of officers, which for us had been on hold for a long time.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. And I'm so glad that I was a part of it, because it gave me such a good foundation for what I'm going into right now.
Right.
I was also then a major over in robbery. Went back home to robbery for another 4 years as a major. And then again over RID, right, as well as all the other investigative parts of robbery. And then Intercoastal District, back to patrol uniform. And it is out of there that I'm promoted to the rank of police chief over North Operations Division. So I've got everything in patrol, from Broward County line to Flagler. Unincorporated, obviously.
Right.
We're going to pull out the municipalities on that. And that is during the Surfside incident. So I've got that experience, which we can maybe talk about a little bit later. And then a couple years after that, I am promoted to the rank of assistant director under Freddie Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And how's it going now?
It's busy. I'm very busy. When I first got promoted, I was assigned to support services, which is like records, communications bureau, a lot of the stuff that helps to support the police department. And then I was recently reassigned to investigative services about 4 months ago, I'd say, which obviously investigations is a big part of my career as well. So
So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get into, I want to know how the campaign's going. And then there's some new laws that just went out. We're going to talk about these laws that are happening and what are your thoughts on it. And then we got those tabletop exercises. Then we're putting you in the hot seat. All right, we'll be right back.
As the current chair of the Sheriff Transition Committee, I am the best equipped to tackle these unique challenges as the first sheriff of Miami-Dade since 1966. The sheriff will have the responsibility to not only protect the community, but to navigate the conversion from a police department to a sheriff's office. It is not simply just changing uniforms and repainting the cars. We need to make sure that our budget is transferred properly, that contracts are reassigned, and that employees' benefits are maintained, just to name a few. And there's so much more that needs to be done. For the safety of our community, we cannot afford to pay for on-the-job training. I am the only candidate in the race who is truly ready to begin the transition on day one. Now more than ever, police experience matters, and I'm ready to bring my 28 years to the office of the sheriff. Only together can we make a strong and safer Miami-Dade.
You want to bring us back, lovely assistant? Woo! There she is, and we're back from break. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about on this segment how the campaign's going. There's a couple new laws I wanted to talk about. So before we talk about those laws, like I mentioned, how's the campaign going?
I hear you had a huge endorsement. Huge.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was decent.
How's it going? How's the campaign going? Is it
is
everything you imagine and more?
It is everything and more.
Okay.
It is a full-time ×2 job. But it's amazing because first of all, it's taken me out of a zone. I've always been a professional law enforcement, right? That's been my world,
Right.
and I've I'd like to think that I've done a good job there. I have a reputation, I have relationships, and it's almost 30 years in this community, right?
Yeah.
Some of the people who are now chiefs of police and assistant chiefs of police in other departments, I knew when we were on the road as officers, right?
Yeah.
And we've come up in our own, and you have these relationships that you can now reach out to each other and build upon. So now I'm crossing this like imaginary barrier and saying like, to the whole community, here I am, right? And
Yeah.
I understand that for the community, they're like, well, how are you going to do this job? You're a woman, that, and I get that. And I try to say to people in a nice way, I'm the one doing it.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
Me. Still doing it. Not retired, not 2 years, not 7 years, not 20 years, still doing the job right now. And, successfully. My career has been very successful. I've been very blessed in my career. Part of my career, I had the opportunity to go to the FBI National Academy. I graduated in 2016. And part of that process, I remained active, right? And I was very involved with the Florida chapter. I ended up going on their board, and currently I'm the first vice president. That's allowed me to keep my relationships across the country with other law enforcement leadership. Right? And what that is for those who may not know, it's the top 1% of law enforcement professionals. And it helps to keep us, it's a networking, it is about training, and it's about communication, right? So that we can keep the pulse of what's going on trend-wise. We don't reinvent the wheel. You reach out to each other, just like you reach out to your partner on your squad, right?
Yeah.
You can reach out to your partner across this country. Same principle, we're brothers in blue, right?
So people don't understand that as if an incident might not occur here, but if it occurs in an area where you have a friend and like, hey, tell me how you handled that. What caught you off guard? What were your shortcomings? This way, when you can prepare here, so it doesn't happen.
Correct.
So that's really, really good of having
is.
that network.
It is. It's incredibly important. And that those network, you don't start day one, right? They take time to build. So that was part of my process. And the reason I'm trying to set that story up is because that began years ago for me, right? What I didn't know was going to happen, Nick, is that was going to be part of the foundation for part of my campaign, right? Because when I'm in this campaign and now I'm pushing forward, and obviously I submit to the Trump campaign team that I would like the endorsement, and I submit my resume with all my contacts and my credentials that include the National Academy. Part of that process was, hey, we know a lot of these people because they're in Washington and they're in California or they're whatever, or here locally as high level, executives. And people started getting calls. And guess what? People knew me.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing the job. And so it was a blessing. And it was also like reaffirmation of what I have done in my career, what I did way before there was ever a sheriff's office or that I would be running for a sheriff's office. So fast forward, that relationship led me to sit down with President Trump for 20 minutes and have a one-on-one conversation with him, which was surreal.
Yeah.
Because there was this Dominicana from Washington Heights having a conversation with former president, maybe our next president.
Yeah.
And I got to share some of my ideas with him and the reason why I was doing this. And I was genuinely surprised. He was warm, inviting, wanted to know about me, about who I was, and we just had a really great conversation. And at the end of that conversation, he turned to me. He was like, "I'm going to endorse you."
No, it's big.
It was
Congratulations.
huge.
I got
Thank
the
you.
goosebumps. Hey!
It's fantastic.
It was,
It's
it was.
fantastic. Did he say you're fantastic? You're fantastic.
I hope so. I hope
All
so.
right.
So yeah,
That's
it's
big.
been it has been. But it also adds another layer of responsibility to me.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm gonna tell you, every step along the way, because it's not just him. Right. I've been endorsed by Congressman Jimenez, who was our former mayor. I've been endorsed by Juan Perez, who was our former director. These are individuals who, through my professional career, have believed in me, have said, "You got this. We expect it from you. Go do a good job." And I believe I have done a good job. And that's why they're stepping forward now on my behalf. But I carry that weight with me. And I'm going to carry that Trump endorsement with me as well, because I want to do a good job. I got in this race because I believe in this department. I believe in this community. And I believe that we deserve a transition that is smooth, without problems. God forbid, on January 8th, there is another catastrophe like a Surfside, and we don't have somebody in there who understands what this is all about. This is not just a position for me. I could have ridden off into the sunset a lot easier.
Yeah.
A lot easier. I love this community. I love this department, and I love the men and women who work for it. I will do everything that I can to give them and this department 150% to take it to the next level.
You said something that is really key and really important, is that when did it was on a small little scale, right? The January 6th, the uprising, whatever it was, something happened, right? But that happened right there after the election. And this election is set up to be supercharged.
Yeah.
That if one side doesn't win or the other side doesn't win, there is a possibility of something happen directly after and on that inauguration day. So it is good to have somebody that knows the systems, the way that it's set up, the way that you can best mitigate anything that happens. So I thought that was really key that you said that.
Experience matters, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm going to harp on that. Experience matters. I understand that there are people that have good intentions and want the best, but you don't know what you don't know. And I am the person that has the highest level of executive leadership in the police department, who's been a cop in this department, for almost 30 years. That's it. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about moving us forward. Yes, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about creating a path for the next 20 years of this county, and creating a professional law enforcement sheriff's office, constitutionally based office. That's super important.
Yeah.
And we can talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Constitution, talk about these 2 new laws that came into place. Like that transition?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, boy, smooth. So we're going to pull up on the screen. First, we want to talk about, I've been, getting thoughts on the Halo bill. So it's a Halo bill that just, I think it comes into place, not coming up in the next couple months, I guess.
Yeah,
I want
I
to
think
say
so.
it's like January or something. It's going to start coming into place. But it just passed, and it essentially protects officers from being harassed while in their capacity, their legal capacity, while they're working. And we can just read real quick. I want to get this correct this time around, because it wasn't passed when I read it on the podcast last time. And the podcast, there was some articles, they didn't have the specified distance. So we said 14 feet, which is wrong. So shout out to Alex Rizzo and Al Palacios. the two that made that bill happen. We're going to have them on the podcast. They have it written down on a napkin, they said, and they have the napkin. They're going to bring it in.
Wow.
They came up with the bill, and they wrote it down on a napkin. I don't know where they were at, but they have the napkin. So we're going to have them on. So update. We'll read it with the updated feet in here, the distance. The bill provides that second-degree misdemeanor. Okay, after receiving a verbal warning not to approach from a person he or she knows or reasonably should know is a first responder who is engaged in the lawful performance of a legal duty to violate such warning and approach or remain within 25 feet of the first responder with intent to impede or interfere with the first responder ability to perform such duty, threaten the first responder with physical harm, or harass the first responder. So then it goes on to some definitions of what is a first responder. But essentially, to bring it down in a nutshell, if you're trying to do your job and somebody comes up to you and harassing you, and it then doesn't have to be just with a phone. It can be just harassing you, impeding.
Yep.
You can tell them, hey, I need you to stand back over there 25 feet away. And if they don't, then you can make an arrest, affect an arrest. So how do you think that's going to affect law enforcement? You see this as a good thing? I just want you to weigh in on this.
I absolutely think it is a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very thankful for this legislature, this specific piece of legislature. I'm going to tell you why. We have seen a shift in, I don't want to say humanity because I hope it's not that deep.
Yeah.
In a culture, in our culture, where it has become more acceptable to criticize and engage in that kind of judgmental behavior instead of doing the right thing, instead of being helpful. Because why is it okay to take out your phone and film someone who is in the middle of a chaos when in fact maybe you should be helping someone?
Yeah.
You don't have to be a cop to help somebody.
Yeah.
No, nobody says that. So this allows our officers, literally give them the fighting chance to do their job. It's already hard enough to be a police officer. It's already hard enough to put yourself in harm's way every single day just by getting dressed up in the uniform and putting on the badge, right? And now you have people that have this culture that where it has become like extra important to become engaged in this antagonistic behavior. I would challenge anybody who feels so compelled to be antagonistic. Why don't you become part of the solution?
Yeah.
Instead of spending so much effort in criticizing, which is not helpful, by the way, at all, because there's a time and a place for anyone who is charged with a crime to argue their side, and it's in front of a judge. It is not on the scene. Instead of somebody who's standing there creating yet another threat for the officer.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of some of the things that you were saying is most of the times, these individuals are getting paid by YouTube. So they're coming to engage with these officers to try to get a reaction from these officers so that they can be monetarily compensated, right? So if the officer does or says something, you see them like, oh yeah, let me keep going. Because if you want to say, oh, this is my First Amendment right, I'm just I'm auditing you to make sure you're doing your job, you can do that. Right?
Absolutely.
We have cameras. You have cameras. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're antagonizing, trying to get the reaction on camera. Mm-hmm. Are you really trying to just check to see if we're doing our job? Or are you trying to get that reaction? And that's where, this bill gives us the opportunity to check those, right? Because they play with that. No, it's my First Amendment right.
Correct.
But what are you doing?
Correct.
You're
Absolutely.
not. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I support this too. I'm like rah rah rah. But we have spoke about it here on this podcast, and there has been comments, right? And they're saying this is a slippery slope. The government's gonna get control over you, taking away your constitutional rights. So it's not. You still can record.
Absolutely.
Just from 25 feet
and
away.
here, exactly. And here it actually says that it's after the warning.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for you to be quote unquote filming, right? Because you
Correct.
feel that as a citizen, you want to protect that person, right?
Right.
Because the officer may be doing, and if that officer never perceives that there's a threat from you,
Yeah.
then you're not going to be challenged, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is still protecting your right as a citizen to be able to film, just like you said that, I'm just going to protect that person because I have a right
Yeah.
to film and document it all. Because the truth of the matter is transparency is key and it works both ways.
Yeah.
We all, and body-worn cameras, we've shown that most of the time, the person that, it'll clear the situation 80% of the time, 90% of the time, because of the individual's behavior, not the officer's behavior.
Right.
And usually then they go, okay, you're right, I was behaving in that manner in that moment. Because the truth is that police officers don't get called to happy moments.
No.
They get called when it's bad.
Yeah.
They get called when tempers are flared and people are hot and families are fighting and money's lost or there's crashes and fires and the worst of the worst. So you're already coming to a situation that is elevated, and I would task any human being to come into that situation and have someone in your face antagonizing you additionally, and you as a human being not to respond.
It definitely takes a special person to sit there and and I don't want to go too far into this, but that's one of the reasons in the police academy there's drill instructors and there's people that are in your face and they're screaming because they're trying to get that reaction out of you. Did you know that, babe?
I did.
Yeah. She can be a drill instructor sometimes to me. I told you. But they're trying to get that. They're trying to warrant that reaction in the academy to see what kind of person.
And that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And if you're in the police academy where it's a safe environment and you're getting yelled at and you can't handle it there, then that is a sign that, one, as a cadet, you have to ask yourself, is this profession for me? This is the one profession where we're telling you up front, you will be pretty much disliked by everyone when you arrive on a scene. Yeah. You are not going to be liked. Can you handle that and still do a professional job?
Mm. That's why it's important to have those community outreach programs because, as you mentioned, there's always a negative situation. It doesn't matter. If you're getting a speeding ticket, that's a negative situation. If you got a car accident, we show up. Every time a police officer shows up, so it's good to have those offsets of like picnics.
So we're going to counter that. We're going to counter that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think that I would like to change, right, when I'm sheriff, is the allowing for the opportunity of the creation of more interaction with our community. That is positive, because that's when the positive occurs. Doesn't necessarily occur when we get called. 911 is not usually the positive time. Yeah. But the creation of those opportunities where we do have the positive interaction, that's more organic. One, that is more pre-planned. And that has to come with planning. That, in the sense of we have to allow for our officers to be able to take what we would call, a 13 or signal on the radio to break away from calls for service in order to engage with the community. We are often telling our officers, get to know the community, get to know the business owners, get to know the people on the corner, right? But clear for a call as soon as possible, write the report.
Yeah. And don't forget to wear your seatbelt.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's right. I do, but that's a cultural change. Yeah, that has to be a cultural change, and I think it's important to. And why? Why do I say that? Because right now we report to county government. As a sheriff reports to the people. That means that the people determine if we're doing a good job. Yep. And so now I can easily justify why my officers are taking time to interact with the people, because that's who they report to without anyone else stepping in and saying, but I need them to go do something else. No, that's who they answer to.
I like it. Second bill.
Okay.
Second bill that we want to talk about, and kind of crazy that they just had to pass this now. Like, you look at it and it's like, what? Why hasn't this been a thing? So we're talking about the squatters and the I don't know exactly what its name. I know there was a Halo bill. This might be like the anti-squatter bill. I don't know. But under House Bill 621, a property owner can request law enforcement to immediately remove a squatter from their property if the following conditions are met. The individual has unlawfully entered and remains on the property. The individual has been directed to leave the property by the owner, but has not done so, and the individual is not a current or former tenant in a legal dispute. So this is just making sure that this is a prior resident that lived there and leased stuff, and that's a civil matter. This is somebody went into this house, has no business being in this house, established residence in the house, and now they're not leaving, and they were protected under the law prior to this.
Correct.
And now this comes out. And I want to talk about this to you because the sheriff department, they handle evictions and everything. Municipalities, we don't do that. Yeah. if somebody calls into some kind of dispute or something, we'll show up and then you guys come and take it over. So can you just talk about a little bit about this?
Sure, absolutely. So as a part of the responsibility of the sheriff's office is the serving of evictions, right? So what will happen is if there's a civil dispute between a landowner and a resident, right? They go to court. The judge determines that, okay, boom, you are going to be evicted. And so then the sheriff comes in to serve it, right? That's how it works. But what was happening was in this particular case is two things. One is, like you talked, there was some loopholes in the law where someone was occupying a vacant home. We're not talking about somebody who they were involved in an actual agreement and then they stopped paying their rent and then weren't leaving. That's one. That's the civil, and that's where you go through the court. These people were occupying the space that was empty before. There was no contract, and then there was, through loopholes, they were becoming like, oh, you have to evict them to get them out.
Yeah.
And so what was happening is there was this national push to inform illegal immigrants that they could do this at the national level. And in many states, they were actually supporting this. Well, oh, he's in. Sorry. I know that they're an illegal immigrant, but you left your house vacant. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to happen in the state of Florida, and that's where this came from. And so you've got, just like it says, which is crazy because to us the first line is like that's literally like burglary.
Yeah.
But okay, so they broke into this house, they got in. You were never a tenant here. Now we've got the loophole has been closed, and you're going to jail for this. So it is important because these are the squatters. We've seen a lot of the issues with the condominium boards, right? Really misuse, abuse of power, using loopholes in these systems, and that, to the point where people are losing their homes over it. These are all situations that our community's been screaming about. We have to address them.
Yeah.
And as a sheriff's office, that's one of the things that I want to create a community board of leaders that will be in direct, not only communication so that the community can speak to the sheriff can speak to the community. They are empowered as a community representative of the sheriff's office to help in the solutions as part of it.
I like that.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
Nobody does this alone, including the sheriff. I think being able to have that direct line of communication is important because at the end of this is a huge county.
Yeah.
We can't be everywhere, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. So that community board will be people. It's self-explanatory, but people
leaders.
around the leaders around the community, and then you meet whatever designated time period, and then kind of like.
Exactly. So for example, let's just say it's a community person from Kendall Lakes area, right? Who volunteers their time. It's a volunteer community, but so they have the opportunity to meet with their people and say, hey, in my community, these are some of the concerns that we're seeing. How about it's squatters? Yeah. How about, hey, listen, we had 4 squatter calls that the police had to be called out, and so what's going on with hey, I'm an intracoastal. We got that problem too. Yeah. Oh, so now we've got it on our radar, and now we can take that information from the board and push it down to organized crime, whoever's handling that particular crime, and get on it. But it's a much quicker and efficient way to talk about the concerns of the community, right? Yeah. Without wait. We got to get back to talking to each other. Yeah, absolutely. Social media, everyone talks on social media. Maybe a Facebook group with that. It helps. It helps. But I also believe in Facebook group. I know. But I believe in face-to-face too. Yeah, that's boots on the ground. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important also to be able to have somebody have that ability to walk in to say, okay, I sat down with the sheriff and I expressed our concerns about this, and this is what we're doing. This is what the sheriff is doing to get it done. So to go back, the squatter thing it's absurd. We had some squatters in our neighborhood.
We'd had one right in the entrance of our neighborhood. It was like the ugliest house, and they just they didn't even have a lock on the house. It was so bizarre, and they were there forever. Yeah, tinfoil on the on the windows to keep out the heat. At first, I was like, "Is this a grow house right here in the front of my?" It turned out to be squatters, and it was just absurd that you, as a property owner, and you're telling these people, "Hey, you have to get, I get it, but you have to go," and like, no, we don't have to go. Yeah. I live here now. Like, that to me was crazy, and some property owners were getting arrested
Yes, because they'd lose. Who wouldn't lose their mind?
Yeah.
Like in that moment.
Oh, I'm grabbing all their, and this is my podcast, like I said, you don't have to agree, but I'm grabbing all their shit and I'm throwing it out. I'm like, get out of my house. But you don't have to say it. I don't want to put you in any situation, but I'm throwing their shit out, and my wife's going to help me.
I would help you.
So on that note,
Yes.
we're going to gather our cool,
All
and
right.
we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about street takeovers, active shooters, some different tabletop exercises, and how you're going to handle it when you become sheriff.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Oh, hey, didn't see you guys there. Just want to take a second to let you know we're broadcasting from Feds Apparel. If you're police, fire, civilian, basically if you wear a uniform, Feds Apparel is the place for you. Visit fedsapparel.com today to check out all they have to offer. I even have a store on there. Feds Apparel, uniforming America. Now let's get back to the show. And we're back! Couple tabletop exercises, and then we're going to continue moving this through. I want to put you through some exercises, or we'll just talk about some scenarios and how you would handle it as sheriff of the Miami-Dade, now Sheriff's Department. The first one is I've seen across the nation, and there's been a conflict over in the Middle East, right, between Palestine and Israel. But around our nation on college campuses, we've seen some protests that's been happening. And protesting is one thing, but they have gotten to where they're taking over buildings. They're getting physical with the police departments. So as sheriff of the Miami-Dade Police Department, we do have some FIU, as you went to school there, University of Miami, Barry University. So we have college campuses.
We do.
Right? How do you plan on, and let's say a situation as one of those arises, how do you plan on, as sheriff, handling that situation?
First and foremost, everyone has the right, First Amendment right for free speech. Understood. That is not the issue that we're discussing here. But that has to be done within the parameters of the law. What no one has is the right to claim First Amendment and break the law in the process. So this whole rhetoric about taking over buildings, and it's not just taking over buildings. They destroyed these buildings. They destroyed property. Libraries were fully tagged up. Books burned, destroyed, ripped. It was disgusting. And to attack officers in the as well, that's unacceptable behavior. That's not anything I would ever allow to happen. And that's how I'm going to address it immediately and effectively. Obviously, some of the universities do have their own police departments, so I'm going to work in conjunction with those departments, giving them the resources, because of course it's going to be a much larger scale. But this is the one thing that people have to understand is that when you allow the small thing, like they allowed just the first few days were allowed, that became weeks.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happens. We've seen it time and time again. This is not new. It's history. It happens every single time. Unacceptable behavior will not be acceptable. Not at all. They're all going to jail if they're breaking the law. You follow the rules. You have your right to free speech. You can say whatever you want. You will stand behind the line. You will pull the permits if it's appropriate, because some of these are private property as well. Right. And if they say, no, you're not allowed to do that here, then you're not allowed to do that here. Yeah. That's how I'm going to stand with it.
I like it. So working together with those, and that goes back to having community relationships. I like it, being involved in that. So I want to move on to another one, accountability for police officers. And as you mentioned, you did do a tour in IA at one point. So you kind of got the gist of this stuff and how it works. Typically, before body-worn cameras, and another reason why we have them, but before body-worn cameras, there'd be a snippet of something, and then there would be this whole story behind that snippet. Nowadays, we have body-worn cameras that tells that whole story. So I just want to see how people now kind of tend to appease a certain crowd that comes in, and they want an officer's head on a stick, and immediately to appease that crowd from maybe doing protesting and then getting a little rowdy, they'll put it on a stick, and then we'll deal with that later. But look, we fired the officer for that, so it was unjust or whatever. So I'm going to bring you to a scenario where same thing, little snip is out, it's going viral. There's a crowd out front of your police department now down in Doral, and they're protesting and they want the sheriff out here because they want that officer's head on a stick. You have the entirety of the story. You're saying, wait a minute, this kind of like, I get what happened looks ugly, but the entirety of the story seems as though this officer is going to be justified in what he did. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look pretty. Police work does not look pretty, but it was justified. And maybe these individuals out there, they're just ignorant to the policy or the law. But it's getting hot. Mm-hmm. How do you plan on handling a situation like that with this large crowd in front of your department?
Nick, you have to have accountability, responsibility for yourself, and the community has to have trust in what you're saying. So it doesn't start the day that there's a crowd in front of your office with a hot seat. It doesn't start then. It starts every day. It starts the day that I take over as sheriff. It starts the day with transparency, with having communication with my community, showing them what we're doing as a professional law enforcement office of the sheriff, right? It starts with talking about what my policies are. It talks about showing them how we're going to be doing policing. And when things are, hey, if there's a shooting, this is what happened, A, B, C, and D, and this is why the end result was. So that when there is a situation that is ugly, like you said, because it depends how, right? The angle, the moment, whatever, because you're right, police work is ugly. And I come in front of that camera and I said, we're going to treat it like we do every other investigation. We're going to allow the process. We're going to check to ensure that the policies were followed. And if there was inappropriate behavior, we're going to hold that officer accountable. But if there wasn't, if the officer was justified in what they did, then they will be exonerated. Then that's my word. Mm-hmm. And I have to believe that my community is going to understand that, because I have been holding myself up to that high standard from day one.
Nope, not taking it. We want that officer's head on a stick, and I'm outside the department. And how are you gonna? We hear you, but it doesn't make me settle me down. Please, Sheriff Rosie, please settle me down.
I'm gonna hold your hand, Nick, because right now you look like you need me to.
I'm just trying to rally it up. It's just like,
listen.
Yeah, you know, it's
Nick, I understand that there are times in our profession that no matter what you say, someone will not be satisfied with your answer.
Correct.
That is the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth is that I know that. Mm-hmm. You know that. And anyone who's been in this job, you know, at a high level understands that this is part of it. What you can do is be honest. You can be transparent. You can share the information that you can legally, because we all understand that there's some stuff we cannot share. But if you are doing all these things regularly, I have seen it time and time again that eventually cooler heads prevail. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Could I maybe take aside the people that are really at a high level and say, come here, let me talk to you privately. Let's talk it out. Tell me what it is that you're worried about so that I can explain to you how am I going to address those concerns. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
I agree with that. And you see that on scenes. When people want to know what happened, it could be nothing. It's just, you're in front of my house. What happened? And they're not going to shut up until you just, and not that they don't have a right to shut up. And I say that and like, oh, why are you telling them to shut up? But they're not going to stop until you go over there and you just say, hey, this is what happened. This person, we did a traffic stop. They have a warrant and they're going to go to jail. Oh, I didn't know they had a warrant. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they go, okay, thank you, officer. And
exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
All right. So. I didn't break you. I was getting angry over here. So what was, let me see. Oh, active shooter. Okay. All right. So just north of us in Broward, a couple years back, there was Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and an unfortunate incident that took place, you know, this active shooter scenario. And, you know, knock on wood, we've been able to kind of like skate past not having one happen. It could be the preparation. It could be the high visibility that we have Miami-Dade schools in there. It could be a slew of things. But how do you, as sheriff, plan on continuing that trend, hopefully, and God forbid something does happen, being prepared enough to mitigate it and stop it before it gets too crazy?
Well, I think we've touched on it a little bit along the way. Yeah. One is preparation is key, 100%. Learning from others' experiences. Yes. I don't want to say mistakes from their experiences, because unfortunately in life, we don't know how we're going to respond to something until it happens.
Correct.
But analyzing, having the the strength to look at something very analytically and say, this could have been done better, including yourself, right? This could have been done better, so forth and so on. So the first thing I'm going to do is continue our current process, which is, by the way, Nick, we do a lot. We do a lot of training. We do a lot of reevaluating our current department and our resources to ensure that things like that are addressed. So we've got Homeland, right, who does a lot of the investigative side. If there's ever any threats, any mitigations that can come in that we can look at to see if they're going to evolve into anything. You have that aspect. And then you've got PRT, Priority Response Team, highly trained 90 officers, platoon size, that is throughout this entire county. They train with the schools, have knowledge of schools so that they can respond, God forbid, in an incident immediately and take over. And they train specifically to stop the killing, right? Stop the bleeding, make those hard decisions that have to be made, so that, because we learned, right, that you can't wait.
Yeah.
You have to take action immediately. And ultimately then you have to look at nationally, what is best practices? What are we learning? What are we hearing? What are the trends? Lone wolves. These are all the things. So it's a combination of all those things. So as sheriff, I'm going to continue that process, and I'm going to continue to use those resources and maintain the high level of standards that the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office is going to have.
All right. Well, that's going to be the end of those tabletop scenarios. We're going to come back from this quick break. We're going to get you in the hot seat, and we got questions from the audience. I said, hey, to the Instagram followers, you're not following us, at Nick Off Duty Presents. Oh, and by the way, we're losing the thing. By the way, where can they find you, the audience? Can you, give us a little bit where they can find you.
Voteforrosie.com,
Okay.
ROSIE.
Okay, voteforrosie.com, and on there.
And on there, on the bottom, are all the other, Facebook, X, and Insta.
Okay,
So
there you go. So voteforrosie.com.
Yes.
Go over there, and you can even, I'm sure there's a button to donate.
There is.
Get involved.
Support is very important, because
Okay.
I've got to get the message out. So
Okay,
yes.
Outstanding. Okay, we're going to
Thank
get back, and the audience asks you questions.
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a quick break. If you're enjoying this historic conversation on what it's going to take to become Miami-Dade Sheriff, make sure you go back. I created a playlist with all the different candidates. Go back and watch those so you guys can get a better feel for these candidates and what they have to offer. Now let's get back to the podcast. And we're back. Oh no, we're back, and it's not hot. Yeah, we're back though. Wait, don't worry, I'm leaving this in. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, look at that. There we go. Ooh, nice and hot over here. You hot over there?
I am really happy here. Yeah.
All right. So, as I mentioned in the last break, we polled the audience on Nick Off Duty Presents on Instagram. If you're not following, make sure you go follow over there. You can get your question featured here and asked the guest a question. We got some questions here that we're going to ask you. However, my lovely assistant, which I usually introduce, it's just been a while since we recorded. So
It's okay.
my lovely assistant over there is going to take the first one. Don't forget, we read the handle and then we read the question, right?
Okay.
All right.
So this question is from Ari Wheat 90.
Mm-hmm.
Will MDPD go with green uniforms?
Okay, let's clean that up.
Okay.
So, will MDPD, now the new sheriff, when
Yeah.
it transitions to sheriff, are you guys going to go with the green? Because you guys got the taupe brown.
Yes. So, in full disclosure, since I am currently the assistant director, I have to say that decision will actually go to the incumbent sheriff, whoever that. Rosie says that we're keeping our brown gown. This community knows the brown gown, and we have enough change coming right now.
Yeah.
I would like to have some consistency. We have our green and whites, and everyone knows our green and whites, and that will remain the same. Which
That's the
is
police
what's-
cars.
Yeah, the police cars,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what statutorily is required, not the green uniform. So we would keep the brown gown when I'm sheriff.
So, sheriffs, they have to, by law, have a green and white or green, some kind of green police car?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay, so you're keeping the uniforms, and that's a huge cost anyways to outfit. You said 3,200?
Yep.
That's a lot of uniforms times
Yeah.
by 5.
Yep.
That's
Look at you being
100,075.
fiscally responsible. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So let's read the next question. This is by Galileo S2K. What will change when it comes to recruiting and hiring deputies? And then he says how quickly with a question mark.
So you become sheriff. What's going to change when it comes to recruiting and hiring deputies?
Well, and I know you said the parentheses is how quickly. It's because that's probably the problem for.
Yeah.
So what's going to change is first and foremost is that the responsibility will become much more streamlined. And I think that will definitely help the process. Our process right now is very lengthy.
Yeah.
Just as a very quick snippet, for example, we post a job opening and it gets all filtered through downtown. And once it closes, we have to wait for downtown to process all of that and give us a list before we can start. You're sitting around waiting for that to happen.
So as
that will not be the case.
It comes underneath the sheriff department now.
Correct. So now that part will be directly. And if it's not done well, right, because there's still a transition period. Understand that you can't flip a switch, right? So even though it's going to be done by the county still, it's going to be separate from the county. So now the county is going to be providing us a service as opposed to being our boss over it.
Right.
So what happens when you have somebody do a service for you and they don't do a good job? What happens?
You get new services.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So either you do a good job or sheriff is going to say, it's time to get a new service because you're not doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I hope that they step up or.
That's good. You get to treat it like a business.
Yes.
Because.
Yes. And again, this is all the institutional knowledge that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Coming from personnel, having done the job of hiring thousands of officers in our department, because I was there for years. It's important. It is so important for us to be able to continue to move forward. We are currently almost fully staffed. And that sounds like, oh my God, you're like the oddball in this entire country.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you why. They changed our drop, right? So the guys that would have left the department because their drop was over decided to extend.
Yeah.
So those vacancies were not created. Without vacancies, you can't hire.
Yeah.
So either you create new vacancies, right?
Right.
Or people leave. That's the only way you can hire. Well, no one's going to create new vacancies in a department that's now been given over to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
No.
So that's where we're at. But these are the things that I understand that I'm ready to address day one.
All right. I like it. Thank you for the question, Galileo S2K. Next question is, this is kind of related to that one. A lot of recruiting stuff in here. True Tuant. And he sends in a lot of questions. Thank you for watching, True Tuant. What is your plan for keeping the department fully staffed?
Wow. Okay. So I feel like that was a little bit of what I just gave in the answer. The fully So fully. Okay. So the important part is to understand what fully staffed means for our department, right? I am going to do a deep dive analysis. It's not going to be year one because the truth is year one is that transition. I have to use the resources that I have day one and reallocate them to address what needs to be addressed, which I didn't get a chance to talk about real quick. Corruption unit. Traffic unit countywide, and addressing mental illness and wellness, right? That's a split. Wellness on the inside, mental illness response on the outside.
Okay.
So those are my 3 top platforms. And so I'm going to use my current resources, but I am going to do a deep dive analysis to make sure that we have the right number of officers.
All right. And my lovely assistant's going to take the last one.
Okay, I got a question from Getbox D3.
What is that? Did you just curse on here?
No, I did not.
I'm just kidding.
Bucks D3.
Oh,
underscore.
Get Bucks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. GETBUCKZ.
Yes.
That D3.
That's
You guys got to come up with some easier names.
Yeah. What made you become a police officer?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I always kind of knew somewhere that I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to serve. I wanted to help. And for me, law enforcement, I was always kind of a junkie, action junkie too. So, that kind of fell into the whole law enforcement. But what I never knew was I'd fall so in love with patrol. Like I'm going to be a detective.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Is that in there? You don't have that? Dun, dun, dun.
I don't have that.
No. Okay.
Give me something.
I'll give you something.
Okay, perfect. But, patrol, like just dealing with people, and I want to give one story.
Go.
We talked about it and I never got back to it, and I remembered it now, and it kind of brought me back. Surfside.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was there for 18 days before I got a day off. Like, it was one day. I don't know what day it was.
Right.
But it was a young woman. It was late at night, and she was trying to get to the, scene, and she's crying and she's upset and she's just like, I just have to go there. I have to go. And I'm like, I can't let you go. Like, you can't go right now. And she was like, but okay, I want to put a letter. Can I put a letter? That's not going to hurt anything. And I said, I'll put it for you. And she goes, no, I have to do it. And I understood that.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I'm going to make a deal with you. You're going to come back during daylight hours because it's nighttime and this is not safe right now. But you're going to come back during daylight, and I'm going to make sure that I get you as close as we can that's safe for you to leave the letter. And she was like, you're lying. You're never going to, it's not going to happen. I go, I give you my word. It's going to happen. And I gave it to someone else, and I said, make sure that this person is contacted. And we had, by then, I don't know if you guys remember, they created a memorial wall.
Yeah.
Right, as close as we could.
Yeah.
And so the person I gave it to contacted her. They met with her. They let her come. They took her. She put her letter, and she was able to spend some time there in prayer. And my only interaction with her was that one night. And fast forward, I received an email from her weeks later, thanking me for how, in that moment, that she swore in her, like, I'm sure she said, I called you every name in the book in my head because she was so close, like she thought she got there, and I stopped her. And so, but she was so grateful that I had kept my word. And I thought to myself, kept my word? Like, that's just, it's human.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest times in our community, probably, in such a long time, So that affected this community in ways that I still say, and I know there's a lot of trauma there that I'll probably be dealing with and, for years to come.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm a police officer.
I like it. Helping people out, time of need.
Yeah.
Being there for them.
Yeah.
I like it. I think if you don't join for something along the lines of that, and then you got in for the wrong reasons, because it's not about the paycheck.
It is not.
No, definitely not.
Or the campaigning.
That's it. Well, congratulations, you just got out of the hot seat. The audience approves. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're very busy in your campaign. I know you have something right after this where you're like, I gotta get going. But I want to thank you for taking the time and joining us here on the podcast. Again, one more time, if you guys want to, you said vote for Rosie.
Yes.
.com. So go to voteforrosie.com. You can donate, you can join the campaign, and then if you want to, and I would highly suggest, follow her on the grams and Facebook and X.
Insta and X, yeah, all of it.
Keep up
Truth Social.
Truth
Social.
Truth Social. Oh, yeah!
There's no better platform. Social. All right, Rosie.
Babe, you got anything?
No, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
It was great talking to you and meeting you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Good luck.
it. Thank you.
And you want to close out on anything?
Just to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and the time. And I will say this to everybody who's listening, that as a sheriff, I promise to just do the best I can. I swore an oath when I became a police officer, and that is how I look to myself, to being a sheriff. It's a new oath. But now it's to serving the community in that position and making sure that this department and now sheriff's office provides those services. We've gotten away because of politics and internal bureaucracy that shouldn't have been, but that's why we're going to sheriff's office. And I just think I'm the best qualified person to get us there.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you so much. Awkward handshake, but at least we did it. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.